When you close your eyes tonight, you're about to experience the transformative power of one of God's most beautiful promises, the protection that rests upon those who trust in the Lord. This meditation, inspired by the words of Psalm 91, has been prepared to wrap your spirit in heavenly security while your body relaxes into restful sleep. Many of us face the night with restless thoughts, worries that won't leave us, anxieties about tomorrow, or unsettling memories that disturb our peace. Perhaps you've experienced sleepless nights or disturbing dreams that leave their mark on your next day. This meditation is designed to transform that cycle, allowing you to surrender your worries and receive in return the peace that surpasses all understanding. Psalm 91 is known as the Psalm of Protection par excellence. Throughout the centuries, countless people have sought comfort in its words during moments of vulnerability. When we are at our most helpless, such as in our sleep, the promises of this psalm are particularly powerful. Think for a moment about the experience of Daniel, who faced the night in the lion's den with a serenity that defied comprehension. Faced with ferocious predators, he rested in the certainty of divine protection. The king, who had spent the night in agony for Daniel's safety, found him in the morning not only alive but at peace. "My God sent his angel," Daniel explained, "and he shut the mouths of the lions." This ancient narrative reminds us that even in the most hostile and threatening environments, divine protection operates in ways that transcend our human understanding. Just as Daniel experienced supernatural security in his moment of extreme vulnerability, you too can rest tonight under the same protection. During sleep, when the conscious mind rests and we cannot stand guard over ourselves, the protective presence of the Most High remains vigilant. Now get ready to receive this protection. Find a comfortable position on your bed. Allow your body to begin to relax, starting with your toes, moving up your legs, torso, arms, shoulders, and finally relaxing the muscles in your neck and face. Breathe deeply 3 times, releasing any residual tension, while your breathing finds its natural rhythm. Imagine yourself surrounded by a soft, protective light. This isn't just a visualization, it's a representation of the divine presence that Psalm 91 describes as the shadow of the Almighty. This shelter is not made of earthly materials, but of the very presence of the Creator. The vulnerability of sleep often awakens primordial fears in us. In ancient cultures, nightfall brought with it real terrors. Predators, enemies approaching under the cover of darkness, and the mysteries of the night itself. In our modern age, we face different kinds of night terrors, anxieties, worries about health, relationships, finances, or unresolved issues that seem to amplify in the silence of the night. Psalm 91 speaks directly to these apprehensions. "You shall not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day." This promise acknowledges that there are real dangers, but affirms a higher protection that transcends them. Just as the divine presence transformed the lion's den into a sanctuary for Daniel, so it can transform your bedroom into a haven of peace, and your sleep into a time of restoration. As we move forward on this meditative journey, allow yourself to gradually let go of the worries of the day. Each word of this meditation has been chosen to guide you deeper into the experience of divine protection, not just as a concept, but as a tangible reality that surrounds you right now. Prepare yourself now for the words of Psalm 91 itself, which we will declare together as an affirmation of faith over your night. These are not merely ancient words, but living promises that have sustained the faithful through the centuries, and which now extend to you, right now, tonight. Now that your mind and body are beginning to relax under the mantle of divine protection, let's contemplate together how the Lord specifically frees us from the fears that arise during the night. Darkness, since the dawn of humanity, has been a time of physical and emotional vulnerability. What we see clearly during the day can take on distorted forms in the shadows of the night. It was around the year 30 AD that one of the most remarkable episodes of freedom from fear recorded in Scripture took place. After a long day of ministry, Jesus and his disciples boarded a small boat to cross the Sea of Galilee. As they sailed, Jesus fell asleep in the stern. Suddenly, a violent storm erupted, a common phenomenon on that lake, 210 meters below sea level. surrounded by mountains that created conditions for sudden and dangerous storms. The disciples, many of them experienced fishermen who knew those waters well, felt real terror. The waves were lashing the boat, threatening to sink it. The darkness of the night intensified their dread, as they couldn't even see clearly the danger that surrounded them. In desperation, they woke Jesus with words that reveal the core of so many of our own nighttime fears. "Master, do you not care if we perish?" It's remarkable that Jesus was asleep in the midst of the storm, a practical demonstration of the peace that transcends circumstances. When he woke up, he showed no panic or concern. He simply stood up and commanded, "Calm down, quiet." Immediately the wind ceased and there was a great calm. This narrative offers us a profound understanding of liberation from nocturnal fears. Let's look at 3 fundamental aspects. Firstly, Jesus didn't remove his disciples from the storm. He brought peace in the midst of it. In the same way, the divine promise is not necessarily to remove all adverse circumstances from our lives, but to bring peace in the midst of them. Secondly, Jesus' presence in the boat was enough to guarantee the disciples' safety, even before he actively intervened. His mere presence was already a guarantee that they would be okay. Thirdly, after calming the storm, Jesus asked his disciples, "Why are you so timid? How come you have no faith?" This shows us that trust in the Lord's protective presence is the antidote to fear. As you prepare for bed tonight, you may be facing storms in your own life. Perhaps worries that seem to shake your stability, or fears that threaten to submerge your peace. Just like the Sea of Galilee that night, your mind may be agitated by waves of anxiety. Breathe deeply and visualize Jesus, in perfect peace, present in your environment. The same authority that calmed the winds and waves has power over the inner storms that disturb your rest. When thoughts of fear arise, be it fear of the future, worry about loved ones, anxiety about health or finances, remember the words addressed to the sea. Calm down. Silence. Historians record that the Sea of Galilee, also called the Lake of Gennesaret or the Sea of Tiberias, measured approximately 21 kilometers long and 13 kilometers wide. Despite its modest size, its storms were feared even by the most experienced fishermen. It is significant that many of the demonstrations of divine power took place in this setting, where the danger was real and tangible. Now consider your own stormy seas, those thoughts, images, or feelings that often disturb your night's rest. Perhaps you lie down and your mind immediately begins to sail through turbulent waters of worry. Psalm 91 assures us, "You shall not fear the terror of the night." Allow each breath to be a surrender of these fears. As you breathe in, receive divine peace. As you breathe out, release anxiety. The promise is clear. Just as Jesus didn't allow the storm to sink the boat, neither will he allow night fears to submerge your peace. As we approach the next part of this meditation, let your breathing remain calm and regular. Feel the weight of your body sinking comfortably into your bed. The fears that once seemed so substantial begin to lose their density in the face of the powerful presence you now recognize in your bedroom. As we continue our journey of meditation, let's examine one of the most comforting promises contained in Psalm 91, the guarantee of angelic protection. As your body settles deeper into a state of tranquility, recognize that the rest you seek does not depend solely on your own efforts, but is sustained by heavenly guardians designated specifically for your protection. In the spring of 44 AD, in Jerusalem, an extraordinary episode of angelic intervention took place which vividly illustrates this dimension of divine protection. The Apostle Peter had been captured by King Herod Agrippa I during a systematic persecution against the first followers of Jesus. This was no trivial imprisonment. Peter was chained between 2 soldiers, with additional sentries guarding the entrance to the prison. What's more, Herod planned to execute him publicly after the Jewish Passover celebration. The night before his planned execution, while the community of believers remained in fervent prayer for him, Peter slept. Note this surprising detail. In the face of imminent death, Peter was able to sleep. This deep sleep in such adverse circumstances already suggests an unusual trust in divine protection. According to the account in Acts 12:7-11, suddenly, an angel of the Lord appeared, and a light shone in the cell. The angel touched Peter's side, woke him up and said, "Hurry, get up." And the chains fell off Peter's wrists. The heavenly messenger instructed Peter to get dressed and follow him. Together, they passed the first and second guard, and finally arrived at the iron gate leading into the city, which opened by itself. This historical account, documented by the physician Luke around 62 AD, demonstrates several fundamental aspects of angelic intervention. Firstly, angelic protection often operates when we are at our most vulnerable. For Peter, while he was asleep. For you, during your night's rest. When our consciousness is dimmed, heavenly guardians remain fully vigilant. Secondly, the intervention wasn't just limited to passive protection. The angel actively guided, enlightened, and removed barriers, the chains, the guards, the iron gate. In your experience, this protection can manifest as a barrier against disturbing nightmares, as guidance through meaningful dreams, or as a palpable sense of security during the night. Thirdly, the biblical text emphasizes that only when the angel left did Peter come to his senses and fully understand what had happened. Often, angelic intervention occurs without our immediate conscious recognition. It is only later that we realize how we have been protected. As you prepare for restful sleep, consider the precise words of Psalm 91:11-12. For he will give his angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways. They shall uphold you on the palms of their hands, lest you dash your foot against a stone. Now visualize these celestial guardians positioned in your room. Ancient Hebrew tradition, developed between the 6th and 3rd centuries BC, considered angels to be specific manifestations of the divine presence assigned to particular missions. The Hebrew word for angel, malach, literally means messenger, indicating their function as emissaries of the Most High. These beings are not limited by physical barriers. They don't get tired and they don't sleep. While their body rests and their conscious mind temporarily withdraws, they remain in constant vigilance. Ancient Jewish traditions preserved in texts such as the Babylonian Talmud, compiled around 500 AD, suggest that each person has angels assigned to them for their individual protection. Now imagine these heavenly presences forming a protective perimeter around your bed. They are not distant or abstract figures, but close and attentive guardians. Just as the angel brought light into Peter's dark cell, they bring light into the shadows of your room. Just as they removed the chains that bound the apostle, they have the authority to undo any spiritual bonds that might disturb his rest. Peter's historic release from prison in Jerusalem was not an isolated event. Throughout the scriptures from Genesis to Revelation, we find more than 300 references to angels intervening in human affairs, guiding, protecting, strengthening, and sometimes bringing specific messages. As you surrender more deeply to rest, accept this dimension of divine protection. It's not necessary to visualize specific details of the angelic guardians. Simply acknowledge their protective presence, their constant vigilance, and the heavenly authority they exercise on your behalf while you sleep. As you continue to descend deeper into this journey of rest, let's explore another precious dimension of spiritual rest: the potential of dreams and divine revelations during sleep. This experience is not just an abstract concept, but a reality documented through millennia of spiritual testimony, with deep roots in the Holy Scriptures. During sleep, when the conscious mind is at rest, another form of perception often awakens. The defense mechanisms and rational filters we operate during the day lower their guards, allowing increased receptivity to spiritual communications. The ancient Hebrews understood this phenomenon so well that they had a specific expression for it: tardama, a deep state of sleep in which divine encounters took place. In the 1st century of the Christian era, during the troubled period of Roman rule in Judea, a carpenter named Joseph experienced an extraordinary divine intervention through a dream. The historical records of the Gospels, compiled between 50–90 AD, tell us that after the Magi from the east visited the child Jesus in Bethlehem, Joseph received a crucial warning in his sleep. The account in Matthew 2:13 describes how an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to look for the child and kill him." This nocturnal communication was not merely informative. It was literally a matter of life and death for the young Jesus. Let's look at the significant aspects of this dreamlike revelation. Firstly, it came at a critical time, when the family was in imminent danger but still unaware of the threat. King Herod, a paranoid ruler known for his ruthless executions, including members of his own family, had secretly ordered the massacre of children in Bethlehem. Without this nocturnal intervention, Jesus could have fallen victim to this brutal decree. Secondly, the message received in his sleep contained specific and practical instructions, not just warning of the danger, but offering a concrete plan of action, where to go, how long to stay, and the guarantee of future communication. Thirdly, Joseph responded with immediate faith, getting up during the night to begin the journey of approximately 150 kilometers to the Egyptian border. This historical narrative illustrates how the time of sleep can be transformed into a period of vital, divine communication. It is no coincidence that approximately 1/3 of all biblical prophecies were received during states of sleep or night visions. From Jacob glimpsing the heavenly ladder at Bethel around 1760 BC, to John receiving the apocalyptic revelations on the island of Patmos around 95 AD, physical rest often coincided with heightened spiritual receptivity. As you prepare to fall asleep tonight, consider your sleep not just as physical recovery, but as a potential portal to inspiration and divine guidance. Contemporary neuroscientists have identified that during REM, rapid eye movement sleep, the brain processes emotions, consolidates memories, and, interestingly, demonstrates patterns of activity similar to deep meditative states. This modern knowledge complements the ancient understanding that sleep represents an altered state of consciousness that is particularly receptive to the divine. Don't search anxiously for supernatural experiences. Anxiety actually blocks receptivity. Instead, simply acknowledge the possibility with calm expectation. The psalmist declared, "He gives sleep to those he loves." Psalm 127:2, indicating that the very act of sleeping constitutes a divine gift, a sacred space of restoration and potential revelation. Before falling completely asleep, you can offer a simple prayer. Lord, I am open to any wisdom, guidance, or revelation you wish to communicate during my rest. I sharpen my spiritual ears to hear your voice. This receptive disposition, without forced expectations, creates the ideal inner environment for divine communications. Meaningful dreams usually carry a distinct clarity and emotional impact that sets them apart from ordinary dreams. They often remain vivid even after waking, containing symbolism relevant to specific life situations. If you experience such dreams, consider recording them briefly upon waking, before the details dissipate in the light of day. As your consciousness slips deeper into sleep, allow yourself to rest in the reassuring promise contained in the book of Job 33:14-16, written around the 5th century BC. In one way or another, God speaks, though man does not perceive it. In a dream or in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls upon men when they fall asleep on their beds, then he speaks in their ears. As we move forward in our nighttime meditation, it is essential to recognize a reality described in Scripture, the existence of an invisible conflict that can affect our peace during rest. This aspect of the spiritual experience, often referred to as the spiritual battle, requires our conscious attention to ensure a truly restorative and protected sleep. The Scriptures reveal that beyond the physical world that we perceive with our senses, there is a spiritual dimension where opposing forces operate. The Apostle Paul, writing around 60 AD to the Christians of Ephesus, a city known for its occult and magical practices, offered a crucial perspective on this reality. In his epistle, he explained, "For our struggle is not against human beings, but against the powers and authorities, against the rulers of this dark world, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places." Ephesians 6:12. This understanding is not intended to provoke fear, but to equip us with discernment. During sleep, when our conscious mind rests, we can be particularly vulnerable to disturbing influences. Negative thoughts, disturbing images, and feelings of oppression can try to infiltrate our resting space. Psalm 91 explicitly recognizes this possibility when it mentions the terror by night and the arrows that fly by day, references to spiritual attacks that can manifest themselves in darkness as well as in light. To understand how to position ourselves victoriously in this reality, let's examine the powerful illustration Paul offered the Ephesians. He described the necessary spiritual equipment using the image of a fully armed Roman soldier, a familiar sight to his original readers who lived under Roman occupation. Each element of this armor of God corresponds to a dimension of spiritual protection. The belt of truth ensures that we are grounded in divine reality, not in falsehood or deceit. The breastplate of righteousness protects our heart, our emotional and moral center, through a life aligned with divine principles. The shoes of the gospel of peace enable us to maintain stability and readiness, even on unstable spiritual ground. The shield of faith extinguishes flaming arrows, thoughts or images that seek to set our inner selves on fire with fear, guilt, or condemnation. The helmet of salvation protects our mind, assuring us of our secure position in divine protection. And finally, the sword of the Spirit, the Word of God, serves as the only offensive element in this arsenal, enabling us to dispel contrary influences. As you prepare for sleep, visualize yourself consciously putting on each piece of this spiritual armor. This is not merely a psychological visualization, but a spiritual appropriation of the protections that have already been granted to you. The ancient Israelites practiced something similar when they placed mezuzot, small containers containing passages of scripture, on their doorposts, a physical acknowledgement of the spiritual protection over their homes. Now specifically declare that your resting space is protected from any harmful influence. Just as Joshua proclaimed, "I and my house will serve the Lord," Joshua 24:15, establishing a spiritual perimeter around his family around 1400 BC. You too can establish clear spiritual boundaries for your nighttime environment. When the prophet Elisha faced an enemy army at Dothan, around 850 BC, his servant was terrified by the apparent numerical disadvantage. Elisha then prayed, "Lord, open his eyes that he may see," 2 Kings 6:17. Immediately the servant beheld a previously invisible reality. The mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire around Elisha, angelic forces vastly outnumbering the hostile army. This narrative vividly illustrates that although we don't always perceive it with our physical senses, the heavenly forces that protect us overcome any spiritual opposition. As you approach sleep, confidently affirm, "I forbid any spiritual disturbance to my dreams and thoughts tonight. By the power and authority granted to the children of God, I establish a perimeter of protection around my mind, emotions, and spirit while I rest." This stance does not express arrogance, but a legitimate appropriation of the spiritual authority, recognized by Jesus when he told his followers, "I have given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you." Luke 10:19. These words, spoken around 30 AD, remain relevant for contemporary believers. Now take 3 more deep breaths, releasing any remaining apprehension. Recognize that you do not face this spiritual dimension alone. The same God who protected Daniel among hungry lions, who guarded the Israelites during the plagues of Egypt, and who preserved Paul in numerous persecutions, keeps watch over your sleep. Let's focus our attention on a final and transformative aspect of Psalm 91, the promise of a blessed tomorrow. The night's rest is not just a break between days, but a divine bridge connecting the present to the possibilities of the future. The hours of sleep act as a portal between the day that has ended and the new day that awaits with its unexplored opportunities. In the last lines of Psalm 91, we find an extraordinary declaration of hope. "Because he has clung to me in love, I will deliver him. I will protect him, for he knows my name. When he calls on me, I will answer. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. I will satisfy him in the length of days and show him my salvation." verses 14-16. These words, written around 1000 BC during the reign of King David, not only promise immediate protection, but extend to a wider time horizon. The concept of length of days in Hebrew thought did not merely mean prolonged existence, but a life marked by purpose, fullness, and fulfillment. The original Hebrew term, orek yamim, implies quality as much as quantity. Days that are not just numerous, but meaningful. When the psalmist mentions "I will satisfy," he uses a word that suggests complete satiety, not just partial provision. Let's consider the biblical example of Joseph, son of Jacob, whose story illustrates this principle magnificently. Around 1900 BC, this young man experienced a particularly dark night when his own brothers sold him into slavery to Midianite merchants. He was taken to Egypt, falsely accused and unjustly imprisoned. For approximately 13 years, Joseph lived under circumstances that directly contradicted the prophetic dreams he had received as a teenager. However, unexpectedly, in a single day, his circumstances changed dramatically. Summoned from prison to interpret Pharaoh's dream, Joseph was elevated to the position of prime minister of the Egyptian empire. The biblical narrative reports that, from prison he went straight to the palace, an instant transformation that no outside observer could have predicted the day before. Joseph's story demonstrates a recurring divine pattern. After periods of trial, seasons of extraordinary blessing and restoration often follow. The Book of Job, considered by many scholars to be the oldest biblical text, dating from around 1800 BC, declares that the end of things will be better than their beginning, and that God will restore double what was lost. As you rest tonight, cultivate a genuine expectation for tomorrow. Not an anxious expectation that disturbs rest, but a quiet confidence in divine promises. Visualize the day to come not just as a repetition of the previous one, but as a new chapter full of sacred possibilities. The prophet Isaiah, writing around 700 BC, said, "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Even now it will spring forth, will you not know it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." While your body relaxes completely, declare this truth internally. The Lord will complete what He has started in my life. The same God who protects me tonight is already preparing blessings for tomorrow. So I rest in peace, free from anxiety about the future. The Hebrew term shalom, often translated simply as peace, carries a much broader meaning. Not just the absence of conflict, but fullness, prosperity, well-being in all dimensions of existence. This is the state that Psalm 91 promises to those who dwell in the shadow of the Almighty. Now, as you slip into a deep sleep, receive this final blessing based on the ancient priestly words recorded in Numbers 6:24-26, spoken continuously since around 1440 BC. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make His face shine upon you and give you favor. The Lord turn His face toward you and give you peace. Tomorrow has already been placed in the hands of the Creator. Every concern, every need, every pending decision, everything is under divine administration while you rest. The doors that need to be opened, the resources needed, the guidance expected, the relationships awaiting restoration, all of this is already being prepared behind heavenly scenes. Sleep deeply, rest completely. When you wake up, you will find not only a new day, but new manifestations of God's faithfulness. As the prophet Jeremiah declared during one of the darkest periods in Israelite history, "It is the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, for His mercies have no end. They are renewed every morning. Great is His faithfulness." May your awakening tomorrow be the start of a journey of discovering the blessings that are already waiting for you. Sleep in peace, wake in hope,